Hi, I'm Steve Ruth, and I'm back again, and this is week 11. This time I think you're going to find a new personality, an interesting personality, somebody who not only fits in pretty nicely at this time in our course, about two-thirds of the way through, as a sort of an integrator, but also a very provocative, controversial person. I'm not, and as always, I'm not trying to tell you what to believe about these various topics like income inequality, etc. But I'm trying to give you as many different perspectives on them so you can form your own views. These are the learning objectives, and a lot of them are framed around the book that Professor Wu, he's a Columbia law professor. He has an endowed chair at Columbia. In a book he wrote some years ago, about 4 years ago, called The Master Switch. We used it in class as a textbook at one time. Very, very interesting. I'm going to give you just a little bit of a snippet of what that book's about, and then you'll be able to see Wu in action discussing it. Also, the International Telecommunications, this gigantic organization out of Geneva, but also with tentacles everywhere. They do put out, for our purposes, they put out some really interesting numbers, and we'll take a look at some of the number summaries that are available to us. These are the assignments. The Measuring the Information Society 2014, that's we've looked at that already. That's the one that brings up these market baskets, where it's interesting that so many countries are connected, but connectivity, as development gets less and less, connectivity gets higher and higher in cost. I'll show you some of those statistics. Why in the world would I be including the Council of Economics chairman's comments on ICT? I think mostly because, just to indicate that at that level in government, ICT is still considered a big deal. And he has, this was about a year old now, but he has some policy recommendations that are pretty interesting. He's a well-known economist who took over as chairman a few years ago, and he's actually made some, I think you'll find these comments, they're brief and they're interesting, and I think they're quite useful. So, plus there's a video of Wu, and you can, I think you'll find him to be kind of a freewheeling, interesting person. I hope so, anyway. Okay, first of all, from the review of The Master Switch, these are Tui's review of that book, which I have as part of our resources today. He says that this is a summary kind of, without exception, the brave new technologies of the 20th century, this is a quote from Wu's book, free use of which was originally encouraged for the sake of further innovation and individual expression, eventually evolved into privately controlled industrial behemoths, the old media giants of the 21st, through which followed the nature of content would be strictly controlled for reasons of commerce. Now, he's basically referring to four different technologies, telephony, radio, film, and TV, and he says they all follow the same cycle. And the cycle basically is that there's individual ideas, and then individual companies like Thomas Edison's film company try to suck everybody up into one big company, and there were a couple of companies in the East that broke away from Edison and went out to the West Coast, like Adolf Kukor, people like that, and they started these famous studios out in Hollywood. That's his point, is that kind of thing happens throughout those four different industries: telephony, radio, film, and TV, and that's the theme of his book. Using AT&T, they're the primary villain in his book. They fostered innovative policies through Bell Labs, but they also squelched inventions of many competitors. They destroyed the small phone companies and basically went about their work, where they finally had to be broken up in a landmark decision that was made. You're all pretty young, so most of you probably weren't even alive when that decision came out, which broke up the AT&T into a bunch of other companies, most of which have flourished anyway. There's also a quote there from his. This is you can read it yourself, but Wu's basic feeling is that it's important to use the Constitution's separation of powers idea, that those who develop information, those who own the network infrastructure on which it travels, and those who control the tools or venues of access must be kept apart from each other. That's pretty interesting. Hope you'll find the entire Tim Wu article of value to you. Here, these are just some things to keep an eye on when you look at the FCC or the Council of Economic Advisors comments. It's basically about tech policy all the way. I wanted you to know that he's just as interested in tech policy for obvious reasons. He gives you 4 major positive statistics, and then he gives you 3 major problems. It reads almost like a technology paper. And then he says, these are some things we can do about it. So I hope you'll find that interesting. And when you post some of those. I'm hoping some of you will be a little bit more opinionated in your posts and say, yeah, I didn't like that third point on his agenda for action, because this is a public policy institution you're in, and be sure that you're able to evaluate and also to give some deeper thought to some of these agendas that are being proposed, because some of them are very radical. Okay, now I want to finish up with a quick review of the ITT statistics. And first of all, let's go to those ITT statistics. One click will take you there from our website. Okay, this is the ICT facts and figures from the International Telecommunications Union. And I'm going to feature maybe a half dozen, but there are many more there, and I think you're going to find them all interesting, and they're current, and there are probably many others that you'll find useful. This is kind of a cornucopia, if you will, of these statistics. Okay, the very first one I'm looking at here is active mobile broadband subscribers per 100 inhabitants, and that you notice that is much higher for the developed nations than it is for the developing. We've been seeing that before. Africa leads in mobile broadband growth, but remember that Africa's basis was so much lower than everybody else's. Broadband participation by regions, the developed regions are, as you would expect, much higher. And this is a really interesting one. You've probably seen it. There's about 7 billion people plus in the world today, and almost 7 billion mobile cellular subscriptions worldwide. So you can just ask yourself, well, how many are there in my house? And as usual, the developing world is ahead, and it's broken down by the various groups. But I hope you'll look at these statistics, examine them, comment on them, criticize them. They have a pretty similar theme. Fixed broadband growth is slowing down. That's wired per 100,000 inhabitants per region, very low. In Africa, it's almost all mobile. 40% of the population are using the internet now, so I think I'll quit there, but I hope this is enough of an advertisement for you to want to use this particular source as much as you have time for. Okay, that's it. Good luck this week. I hope you find it interesting, useful, maybe even a little bit fun, because there is a vast amount of material there. You're finding more and more to share with everybody with your posts, and I hope we can continue that for a few more weeks. We seem to be doing great. Don't forget, the research paper's due in about a week, and if you want to get an extension, let me know, and I can give you a week extension if you want it, but I do need to know about it. Thanks a lot. Bye.